Greetings, my name is David Stauffer. I'm a proud member of the class of 1960 at Ladue. And I'm even prouder to say my father was your principal, Richard Stauffer. Congratulations to the class of 1965 on the occasion of your 50th reunion. My dad came to Ladue in 1951. He was 34 years old. He was selected to be the principal of a brand new high school being built in West St. Louis County. And he was principal there and opened the school in 1952 and was there until 1971. My dad was hired to be the new principal of a brand new high school in West St. Louis County, Ladue High School, in 1951. He spent the next year overseeing the construction of the building, hiring the staff, and formulating and envisioning the culture and the climate and the kind of atmosphere that the Ladue community wanted for their high school, and especially for you, their students. He was principal there until 1971, and my two sisters and I all graduated from Ladue, and we're very proud of that fact. In 1971, he went on to central office at Ladue, worked for the superintendent as his assistant until 1978. In 1984, my parents moved to Florida. One funny story, they bought a car in the early 90s, and so Dad decided to help make the payments in the car. He was going to get a part-time job. So he became a bagger at one of the local grocery stores, and he was a very affable guy. He always liked to talk with people. And he'd spend time talking politics or economics or sports or culture or education with the people that would come through there. I asked him once if he ever put eggs or tomatoes at the bottom of the bags. He said no. And when he passed at his memorial service, a dozen people from that grocery store came to pay their respects to my sisters and I. Again, I want to congratulate you as a class on your reunion. Have a wonderful time, reconnect with old friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, and good luck to you in your future endeavors.
I'm Karen Anderson, and I was in the Ladue District first as a teacher at East Ladue. I started in 1961. In 1967, I went to the high school as a counselor. Was there till 1970. I think one of the things I was thinking about is, in kind of preparation for my thoughts to talk to you, was that when I graduated from college, I taught in Chicago area for 1 year, and then my husband was at WashU, so I came to St. Louis. I sent out letters to 30 school districts. I got 30 responses back, which would be so different today. I'd have to start at the bottom and work up. But I got the first interview I had was at U City, and they had already hired someone. My second interview was at Ladue. And as I rode down Clayton Road, I got this wonderful feeling that I was in the right place. And I remember so vividly the wonderful kids that I taught and how much I grew as a person through working with them and with you. And I think that's why I had the courage to go back to graduate school and become a counselor, and today I'm a marriage and family therapist in private practice. But I think that Ladue was a perfect environment for a child to grow, to be nurtured. You had wonderful parents that were so supportive of us as teachers, and we had wonderful teachers that we could interact with and try to help you grow and guide you as best we could. But I just want you to know what the impact was on my life being part of Ladue. I ended up marrying Chris and Doug Adderton's father, Chris and Doug, you may remember, who were students. And we have a grandson now, little George, who is in 4th grade at Reed School, and he's having a great experience there. So I know you all have grown up to do great things, and I know you've had a lot of struggles, but that's those challenges that we meet in life are what make us who we are. And life, the challenges never stop, so the growth continues as long as we live. And that's the way I try to live my life. But thank you for those wonderful times in Ladue. I loved it all.
My name is Del Dace. I worked with Ladue Schools for 30 years. I've been gone 21 years, but I've been teaching at universities for the last 21 years and working on Broadway and a few other places in my art. I remember many of you in your class had art classes with me at Horton Watkins High School and also at the junior high school where I taught visual arts there. It was always a pleasure to have you in my classes because you were a great class. Both of my children graduated from Horton Watkins High School, Don Dace and Dan Dace. One of the things I remember so much about your class, because I was just starting in Ladue when you guys were graduating. I started in 1962. I was there 30 years, I left in 92. But one of the things, you all had enthusiasm. I noticed after class, at the end of the day, school day, instead of running and getting in, we didn't have a big bus system, but instead of just getting out of school, kids were always in the hallways. They were in the cafeteria. There were different places when school got out, and they still talking about school. They were proud of their school, and they did things had compassion for other students who maybe were having problems, and you were talking about them. You were talking with them, and I always appreciated that in that class, in your class. And it's been my pleasure to be here today and meeting some of my old colleagues and visiting and having some of your people in your class talk to us and how important you thought we were to them. But let me also say to you, you were important to us. Because remember, without students, they wouldn't have needed any of us. Now we're old coots, but we wouldn't need any of us those days. But we're so pleased that we're part of your, or will be a part of your 50th class reunion. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Hello, my name is Vic Bassman, and I came to teach at Ladue in the year of 65. And I came in the middle of the year to replace a fellow by the name of John Archer. And at that particular time we had a program that was simply called Art Fundamentals. And just one or two other programs that were specialized, like painting. And over the course of my tenure of 36 years, we've developed the program to be more specific on every level. Computers, graphic design, sculpture, pottery, painting, art and fantasy, quite a large number of specific kinds of programs. And luckily I was able to get the funding. Many other schools feel art is as important as the people of Ladue, and I congratulate all of you for that. It's one of the fun things for me, since I live in St. Louis and I attend a certain number of bars. There's often a time when people will walk up to me and say, "Aren't you Mr. Bassman?" And as I can't remember who said it out there, but they've acknowledged that I guess we've taught as many as 10,000 students each in the course of our tenure. And I begin to believe that, because I do get to see a lot of kids older, and even when they were a little bit more difficult to handle, getting to meet them again and seeing how they've matured, how you've matured, is exciting. It's exciting.
Hello, my name is Tim Tomlinson, and I was at Ladue High School, Horton Watkins Ladue, from 1955 to 1968. When I started teaching, I started with 9th grade English, and 9th grade social studies, and 10th grade English, and 10th grade social studies. I coached the soccer team, first the B team, then the varsity team. But after a sabbatical at Harvard in 1960-61, I was a John Hay Fellow. When I came back to Ladue, I concentrated only on world history. I taught sophomores only, and I was the chairman of the history department until I left in 1968 to go to Washington University. I thought Ladue was a wonderful place to be. I enjoyed everything I did there. I enjoyed working with the students and my coaching experience with the other coaches on the coaching staff, with the administration, the library, the music people, the art people. It was a well-rounded, all-around high school experience. For students, but also I think for faculty, and it's it's a great tribute that so many of the people who will be part of this reunion for you in 1965 have probably spent their entire teaching careers at Ladue. I stay in touch with my Ladue friends. I'm active in the Ladue Education Association for Retirees, LEAR, they tell me it is. I attend lunches, I play golf with some of my friends who are of mine back in the 50s and 60s, and have been at the high school now over the past 5 or 6 years, 2 or 3 times. It's changed, but it's not changed. It's still Ladue. It's a great place to be.
I'm Preston Comprovica. I retired in 1990. I taught biology, physical science, and I was the wrestling coach for 7 years at Ladue. One of the things I remember is this, that whenever I run across former students of mine, they always remember my stories. I was sitting at the table tonight this afternoon with David Diener, and he said, I remember your definition of love. And I said, well, what was that? He said, it's when you can use the same toothbrush, you're definitely in love. I remember my time here at Ladue, which was about 32 years of teaching, as the best years of my life. And if I had to start all over again, I would choose teaching, and I would choose Ladue, especially this 65 group. They were wonderful.
My name is Chris Kraster. I was born in Bulgaria. I left that country because of communism. I got my education in Istanbul, Turkey, in Massachusetts, and Indiana University. I came to Ladue in 1959. I was discovered, but I also discovered a very good school district. And this is the only place I worked for 34 years. My subjects were government, history, social sciences. Most of my classes were in the field of European history, world history. I really enjoyed my years of teaching at Ladue, in Ladue, and I enjoyed my students tremendously. From the very beginning, I developed a disciplined way of relating to students, disciplined with friendship, discovered and described my style. So far as other activities are concerned, after I retired completely in 1994, I have done quite a bit of bicycling, auto touring, and I really enjoy gardening at home. I have enjoyed my friends, and I meet them from time to time, but the name Ladue is ingrained on my mind, and that shall stay till the end of time. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Tony Cardis, and I taught at Ladue School for 37 years, starting in 1962. So I started the same year that the people in the class of 65 were sophomores at the high school. I began my teaching career in Ladue pretty much by accident. I was a graduate student in science at Illinois State University, and a person who was the assistant to the superintendent in Ladue, James Heald, knew that they needed a chemistry teacher at Ladue. And he called his former chemistry professor at Illinois State and asked him if he had anybody he would recommend for the job. The chemistry professor recommended me, so late one Friday I came down to Ladue. I had an appointment for 4 o'clock, to interview with him and the superintendent of schools. Highway 270 was being built at that time, and I got caught in the traffic, and I didn't arrive at the school till 10 minutes after 5. The superintendent of schools and the assistant superintendent were waiting for me for the interview. I talked to them for about an hour that day, and when the interview finished, they offered me the job. I came to Ladue, and I think that is the best decision I ever made in my life, because Ladue High School was an excellent place to teach. The students were excellent, and I always enjoyed working with the students at Ladue. The class here is no exception. And one of my fondest memories during the tenure of this class was a trip to Washington, D.C. It was, I believe, in 1964, where the class, part of the members of the junior class took a trip to Washington, D.C., and I was one of the chaperones on that trip. On that trip, I rode in an airplane for the first time in my life, and two of the highlights in Washington, D.C. were meeting Senator Stuart Symington from St. Louis, and another one which really I wouldn't describe as a highlight, but sort of a low light, was to see the grave of John F. Kennedy. And I remember being in the classroom at Ladue in front of my class when the PA system came on and they said the president had been shot. So that was not a very good day for me or for any of the other students or for the country. But all of us worked through that, and we did survive. After that class graduated, I continued teaching at Ladue for many, many years, and always enjoyed the classes that I taught and the students that I had. It was a premier school in the United States, and I felt that I never regretted my choice. It ended up that my two children both graduated from Ladue High School and have both been successful in their lives after graduating from Ladue. So even though I was at Ladue for 37 years, I wasn't able to ever graduate, but I did have a good career there, and after I retired, I've enjoyed my life. I volunteer at the St. Louis County Library. I'm very interested in genealogy, and for the past few years I've been putting things on the internet for people to do work with genealogy. So I've had, I think, a very fulfilling life, and I'm very happy in what I do, and I'm very happy with the choices I've made, and it's been a good experience to be able to go out in the community and see graduates of Ladue High School in the grocery store or at other places in the community and talk to them about how they've been successful.
I'm Ralph Engelmeyer, and I taught at Ladue from 1958 to 1992. And I'd like to thank you for having me come and give a few minutes of the past. And I spent my time teaching at the high school, the health class at the high school. Help open up East Ladue, help open up West Ladue, and in the meantime I was teaching at Price, Urbana, Spinney, and Central Elementary Schools. So if I look familiar, you might remember one of those schools where I taught. When I was hired in 1958, I was hired by Dr. Ivan Nicholas, a great man, and he hired me for a big salary of $4,300 a year. And before I got out of his office, he found out that I was in the military service in Europe. And he raised my salary $500 on the spot right there, so I actually started teaching at $4,800. I coached at the junior high, football, basketball, and helped coach Dale O'Brien with the track program. What I am amazed at is how people have turned out to be such fine, upstanding people. some very serious or regular cut-ups. Just fun people. We always had a good time. And I thank you for letting me be your teacher.
Hello, I'm Coach Brusca, and I was there for a long time. I didn't retire until 1991, but in between all that time, I coached track, cross country, football, worked the table for the basketball, and did many things that I enjoyed. I've been asked many times, why did you work 40 years before you retired? My simple answer is, I loved what I was doing. I always enjoyed my track. I enjoyed it mostly because I was the spirit of it and I was the teacher of it. I got to tell you a little story. I had prostate cancer, and before they began any work on me, they laid me on a table at the hospital. And the guy came up to me and said, Coach Brusca? I said, yes. He said, you don't remember, but you taught me to drive. I felt very humbled by that situation. There is one other thing. Somebody says, you look good. Well, I should look good. For the last 33 years, I have been throwing the shot, the discus, the hammer, the weight, and the javelin, participating in Masters track. It's helped keep me alive, and it's helped keep me going mentally. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed your group. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, to the class of 1965, Don Kettlecamp, known as Coach Kettlecamp way back then. As you know, I taught phys ed for quite a few years at the high school, actually 10 years at the high school. Then I moved over to the junior high for another 10 years, and I closed that school. So then they moved me over to board office. Spent about 5 years there as Director of Auxiliary Services, then moved back to the high school after Mr. Wagner, and all of you know Mr. Wagner. He decided to retire, so I got the pleasure of taking over for him for 5 years. I retired in 1990. All right, so I've enjoyed this length of time just relaxing, enjoying my time with my wife, going to Florida for a couple months out of the year, and my favorite hobby is playing golf. Like to read, but all in all, the thing I enjoyed most was school, was the education and the challenges that they provided. And I'm sure you know, but you didn't at the time, you got one hell of an education. And you knew that once you got to college. You thought probably everything was easy. And it should have been, because that was the way you were taught. I'm looking forward to maybe seeing some of you in 65. God willing, I'll be around. All right? We're all up in years. And the thing about it, you're in the golden years now too. And you know why they call it the golden years? I'll tell you personally, back on 65.
I'd say hello to the class of 65. I'm Jim Wagner, and 65 I was, of course, attached to the physical education department, and I did coach basketball that year. And I can just say that teaching, working at Ladue was just one of the finest things that's ever happened to me. I was always so proud to be associated with Ladue. We had one of the finest teaching staffs, I think, in the United States, and certainly one of the finest high schools. I felt the same way, of course, about our physical education department. As you know, we offered phys ed 5 times a week, and we just had a variety of activities that I thought were superb. And in addition, one of the things we try to stress or emphasize that every student learned how to swim before they graduated. And I have to give credit to the guy that, I should say, brought the whole phys ed department and he gave us the direction and leadership, the guy whose name was on the gymnasium when they built the new one over there, Mr. Steve Nielsen. As I said, our teaching staff was just superb, and I think all of you will agree when you left Thornton Watkins High School, you were very well prepared as you entered college. Memories, oh, there's so many, of course. After I retired in '85, I went back to the high school on a few occasions, and I stood in the old gymnasium, which of course is now the library. And I thought so many times about all the activities, all the games that were played there, and couldn't help but think about, and I'm sure all of you think about it, the hard work, the fun you had in decorating the old gym for the junior-senior prom. I can only say that, again, the best years of my life spent at Ladue High School, and I'm so proud that I can address all of you. I'd say to the class of '65, I wish only you and all your family the very best in life. I say enjoy yourself, have a great reunion, and thanks so much for allowing me to say a few words.